In this assignment, we're going to look at dimensional analysis. Now, this is only with standard conversions. And when I say standard conversions, I mean when we're not going from a metric version or metric value to another metric value. Dimensional analysis is also known as, why is it not? Unit analysis, and that's because the word unit derives from the word one, and we're essentially just multiplying by one. And I'll get into that in 1 second. Actually, let me go ahead and get into that now. So when I say multiplying by 1, if I had the number 10 and I multiplied it by 1, it's still 10. So we didn't change our original number. If I had the number 10 and I multiplied it by the fraction 5 over 5, we know that the fraction 5 over 5 is just 1. So it would change it to 50 over 5, which would eventually go back to 10, and we didn't change the value. So we're multiplying by 1, but 1 is often hidden in some form of a fraction like 5 over 5. So for instance, I'll go ahead and talk about one of these. Let's do a common one, and for this video I've used some common conversions. These may not be the simple conversions, but they're all done the same way, so I try to use something we know. So 1 foot is 12 inches. So if I have 1 foot over 12 inches, this is essentially just equal to 1, just like 5 over 5 was equal to 1, because we know the top is the exact same as the bottom. But what this will allow us to do is it will allow us to convert from feet to inches or vice versa. All right, so that's essentially all we're doing here with unit analysis is we're multiplying by 1, but we're using distinct dimensions or units of measure with that fraction that gives us 1. Okay, and like I highlighted, I'm going to use some common conversions here for this video. So 1 foot is 12 inches, 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters, 1 yard is 3 foot, 1 mile is 5,280 feet, 1 day is 24 hours, 1 hour is 60 minutes, 1 minute is 60 seconds, 1 mile is 1,760 yards, and 1 year is going to be 365 days. Now, these are the units of measure that we're going to use for this video, but no matter what our units of measure are, as long as we have the conversion table, we can do this technique for any type of conversion. So just for this video, we're going to use some of the common ones that I have listed below. All right. So let's start with how we're going to set this up. So I'm going to do the odd problems for this worksheet, and I'm going to let you do the even ones and to submit for your homework for this assignment. So the first ones we're going to look at are one-step conversions. So every time we read one of these problems, we want to pull out what we're starting with. So here I say convert 4 feet to inches. So what I'm starting with, or the unit of measure that I'm starting with, is 4 feet. So I have 4 feet. And I want to make this a fraction. Sorry about my pen. And I can make anything a fraction by putting it over 1. So I have 4 feet and I put it over 1. Now I want to convert this to inches. So that's what lets me know what I need to use. So I'm going to come back up here and I look and I see I do have a conversion that goes from feet to inches. So that is going to be what I use. I'm going to use 1 foot is 12 inches. So I'm going to multiply this by another fraction. And here's the technique that we're always going to use. If I have feet on top, I need to cancel feet. So that lets me know that I'm going to have feet on bottom. And I actually go ahead and write that step before I even look at what I'm going to use, because I knew I wanted feet on bottom. But now I have one that says 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So now the feet that I have on top of the fraction will cancel with the feet that I have on the bottom of the fraction. And then I just multiply across the top. I have 4 times 12, that gives me 48. I multiply across the bottom, 1 times 1 gives me 1. This is 48, and if we look and see what unit of measure we have remaining that did not cancel out, that would be 48 inches. So that would be my answer. And we probably could have done that one in our head, 4 feet, 48 inches. Some of you probably knew that without doing the math. And with these first ones, one step, there's going to be a lot that you can do in your head, but I'm going to encourage you to do these by hand mathematically for each one. I'm also going to switch to black because I think this blue is a little bit tough to follow. So I'm going to leave number 2 for you to do, and I'm going to do number 3. So I'm going to convert 24 inches to centimeters, and up here in my instructions, I do ask you to round to the nearest hundredth as needed. So this one we may need to round depending on what it gives us. So 24 inches, I have 24, and I want to make that a fraction. So I start with 24 inches, and it's also really important that we go ahead and label whatever unit of measure we have. So I have 24 inches, I want to make sure I have inches. Before I even look at my chart, I'm going to multiply this by a fraction that gives me inches on top. And now I know where I want to be. I want to go to centimeters. So I'm going to look and see, do I have one that goes from inches to centimeters? And I do. I have 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So I have 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. Now that's essentially me multiplying by 1. 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch, so I'm just multiplying this by 1. I'm going to undo that. So now the word inches would cancel. I'm going to go to blue for this one. The word inches would cancel. So now I just multiply across the top. And I'll also notice what didn't cancel is centimeters, and that makes me, that confirms I've done this right because that's where I want my answer. So 24 times 2.54, I'm going to grab my calculator for these. Sorry, 24 times 2.54 gives me 60.96. Let's move my calculator over here. 60.96. And that would be centimeters because my centimeters did not cancel. And across the bottom, 1 times 1 just gives me 1. So if I'm dividing 60.96 by 1, that is still just 60.96. And now that's going to be centimeters. 60.96 centimeters. And I'm supposed to be rounding this to the 100th, which is 2 decimal places. So I didn't have to round that answer either. But that's going to be the process. I'll let you try number 4. And with the first 2 that I did, the denominator was 1. The denominator is not always going to be 1, so don't just get in the habit of just doing the numerator. So with this one, let's look at it. Number 5, I start with 68 inches, so I want to go ahead and put that over 1. I know I'm going to multiply it by something that has inches on the bottom, and now I look and see where I'm going. I want to go to feet, and I've already done this one, so I don't have to go back up to the top. I know that 12 inches is 1 foot. So now my word inches would cancel. When I multiply across the top, 68 times 1 gives me 68. That would be in feet now because my feet did not cancel. And on bottom, 1 times 12 gives me 12. So now I just need to do this division in my calculator, 68 divided by 12. I'm letting you write this as a decimal, so we can use decimals here. If the instruction said write it as a fraction, you would just want to turn this decimal into a fraction. But if I round this decimal to 2 decimal places, it's going to be 5.67. So that's what I have here, 5.67, and that would be feet. So that would be my answer there. All right, so number 6 is for you. And now we're going to move on to something that's a little bit tougher. These are going to be multi-step conversions. We're still going to round to the nearest hundredth. I'm still using the same conversion chart that I had above, but the process is going to be multiple steps, and I'll show you what I mean with this very first one. So with this very first one, I see that I'm starting with 4 feet, so I want to go ahead and put that as a fraction, 4 feet over 1. I know I want to get rid of feet, so I'm going to put feet on bottom, and I want to turn this into centimeters, right? That's what I'm trying to convert to. But if I scroll back to the top, I'm sorry for making you dizzy here. If I scroll back to the top and look at everything I have, I don't think I have one that goes directly from feet to centimeters. So what do I do at that point? I just have to start somewhere. So I don't have one that goes from feet to centimeters, but I do have one that goes from feet to inches, and then one that goes from inches to centimeters. So these are going to be the 2 I use. I want to start with this one because I wanted to cancel out my feet first. So I'm going to use 1 foot is 12 inches. I'm going to scroll back down and come back to it. So I have 1 foot is 12 inches. So if we go ahead and cancel out the word feet, you'll see now that I have the word inches left, or the unit of measure inches left, and I don't want that, right? I want centimeters, so I know I need to multiply this again, and this is why I call this multiple step. I need to multiply it by another fraction that gives me inches on bottom because I want to cancel out inches with the top and bottom. So now I'm going to scroll back, and I have this second conversion. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So I have 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So now my word inches has canceled. My word feet had already canceled, and I'm left with the word centimeters, and that's where I want to be, or that's the unit measure I want to be in. So I can proceed with doing the math. So the math is you multiply all the way across the top. Multiply all the way across the top. 4 times 12 times 2.54. Grab the calculator for that. 4 times 12 times 2.54. I get 121.92. I'm asking you to round this to 2 decimal places, so I'm going to keep it as is, 121.92. The unit of measure I have is centimeters. And when I multiply across the bottom, 1 times 1 times 1, I just get 1. So my final answer when I do that division is just going to be 121.92 centimeters. So that one, it took me 2 fractions to multiply to get to my answer. You're going to want to do the same with number 8. Convert days to minutes. You first probably have to convert this to hours and then to minutes. Let's look at number 9. So this one, I'm going from 3 miles, and I want to make that a fraction, and I want to end up with centimeters. So I know I don't have one that goes from miles to centimeters, but I want to find out what do I have that can convert miles to something else. So I have a couple different options, and you can't go wrong here. You can use whichever option you want to, it just might add more steps. But I do have that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. And I'm not going to scroll to the top, but I did have that one. So now I've canceled out the word miles, but I'm left with the word feet, which I don't want. So I know I'm going to multiply by another fraction that gives me feet on the bottom. And I know that one of my units of conversion is 1 foot is 12 inches. So that cancels out the word feet, but now I have inches, and I don't want that. And I have a unit of conversion that will give me inches on bottom, which is 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. The word inches cancels. So now the unit of measure I'm left with is centimeters, which is what I wanted. Once I get that and have canceled everything else out, I just multiply across the top. Grab my calculator, and calculator will probably hide that second piece, but it was 3 times 5,280 times 12, and then the one that the calculator is hiding is 2.54. So times 2.54, that's my numerator. I get, let's see, 482,803.2. Whoops. 482,803.2. I might bring that back up because I feel like I might have forgot that. 482,803.2, perfect. And that would be in centimeters. And on bottom, I have nothing but 1s on bottom, so that's going to give me 1 on the bottom, so there's no point in dividing by 1. So my answer is 482,803.2 centimeters is equal to 3 miles. So you can see that one, it took me, if I had to count, I had to do 1, 2, 3 steps to get my miles to centimeters finally. Number 10, you can do. Number 11, I'm starting with 68 centimeters, and I'm going to pause right here. I've been using centimeters, but centimeters is a metric unit, but I'm going from a metric unit to a standard unit, so that's why I'm going to do this type of dimensional analysis. So 68 centimeters, put it over 1. I know that I'm going to need centimeters on bottom. The only thing that I have from my chart above is 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 inch. I've canceled the word centimeters. Now I need to cancel the word inches. I'm going to have inch on bottom. I know that 12 inches is 1 foot. Inches is canceled. And now, without even thinking, I know that feet are on bottom. And if you're confused at which one goes on top and bottom, here's why. I probably should explain this earlier. If I have centimeters on top, I know I need centimeters on bottom because I need to cancel it. If I put centimeters on top, they won't cancel. So here I had inches on top, so I knew I needed inches on bottom to cancel. And at this stage, I have feet up top, so I want feet on bottom, so they'll cancel. And then I'm just trying to work my way to yards. And I think I have this one up there. 3 feet is 1 yard. And if I don't, I'm going to add it. So let me scroll to the top and see. Yep, 1 yard is 3 feet. So I just wanted to make sure I had that one. Okay, so now I'm happy once again because I finally have the unit of measure I wanted, yards. So once I get to that stage, I multiply all the way across the top. 68 times 1 times 1 times 1 is just going to give me 68 yards. and I multiply all the way across the bottom. I'm going to go to my calculator for this one. I have 2.54 times 12 times 3. Clear this. 2.54 times 12 times 3. And I get 91.44. So this is a good one, 91.44. And now I don't have my answer yet. I need to actually do this division. So the denominator is not always 1. In this case, it's not. So I just have 68 divided by 91.44. Press enter. I get 0.7436, and if I'm rounding this to 2 decimal places, 0.74. So I have 0.74, and that would be yards. So 68 centimeters is 0.74 yards, so not quite an entire yard would be 68 centimeters. Sorry for erasing that. All right. So the next section we're going to look at is multi-step conversions with rates. So you'll see this if you see any type of rate, and in this case, the most common rate that we talk about in the United States is miles per hour. So the initial setup to this one's a little bit different because we have 2 units of measure, but after that, the process is the same. So I want to convert 2 miles per hour to inches per minute. So with this one, I'm going to treat it a little bit different. I do want to start with 2 miles per hour. How do you write that? That would be a fraction. It's 2 miles, and we never say it this way, but when we say per hour, that's per 1 hour, and that was supposed to be h. Per 1 hour. So that's how we would write 2 miles per hour. So it's 2 miles per 1 hour. So we set it up with the numerator 2 miles, the denominator 1 hour. Now, with this type of dimensional analysis, I want to keep my end goal in mind. I want inches per minute. So how would we write that? It would be inches per minute. Sorry. Handwriting got a little sloppy. So inches per minute. So I need to keep in mind what I want. I want inches on top and minutes on bottom. So this tells me which direction I need to go. And right now, if I look, I don't have inches on top over here. I have miles up top, and I don't have minutes on bottom. I have hours on bottom. So how do I start? I start just by canceling one, and it doesn't matter which one you want to do. You can try to cancel miles first or hours first. That's up to you. I'm going to cancel miles first. So if I want to cancel miles, since miles is on top, I need miles on bottom. And I have 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So my miles have canceled, but I have feet up top now, and I don't want feet up top. So I want to put feet on bottom, and I have 1 foot is 12 inches. And once I get what I want, in this case inches, I circle it, right? I have my inches on top, so I'm happy there. And now I need to come way back over here, and I see that I have hours on bottom. So I want to come up with some fraction that has hours on top, and these aren't beside each other, right? So that's fine because multiplication doesn't have to bump up next to each other. I can cancel out at any time. So hours on top here, since I had hours on bottom, so that's going to cancel. And I have 1 hour is 60 minutes. So now I have minutes on bottom and inches on top, which is what I wanted. I wanted inches on top, minutes on bottom. So now once I've done all of that, I can multiply across the top. Once again, I'm going to grab my calculator. 2 times 5,280 times 12. And I think the last one was 1. Yep, times 1. All right. So I get 126,720. So 126,720. I'm going to erase this equal sign and put it a little bit further to the left. All right, and when I multiply, and that would be inches, and when I multiply across the bottom, 1 times 1 times 1 times 60, I get 60 minutes. So now this is the fraction answer. I don't want the fraction answer. I want this rounded to the nearest hundredth. So I actually just do this in my calculator. The actual fraction, 126,720 divided by 60. Since I already had that answer there, all I have to do is hit divide by 60. And I get a whole number actually, and it usually would be a decimal, but here I get 212 or 2,112. So I get 2,112, and this is inches per minute. So I got 2,112 inches per minute. So that's a very unique type of conversion, but it is dimensional analysis, and we're essentially doing the same thing. Number 15 is kind of a comical one. We're getting towards the end of this, and I just want to show you that this doesn't always have to be sciencey or mathy. It can go for anything. As long as we know a unit of measure, we can use this technique with anything. So with this problem, I have Johnny eats a bag of M&Ms every day. Each bag contains 56 M&Ms. How many M&Ms will Johnny eat in 1 year? So I start with one bag of M&Ms. So Johnny eats one bag, and he eats that every day. So he eats one bag per day. That's where Johnny starts with. Where we want to be, I'm going to write this in black, is how many M&Ms. So this is how many M&Ms will Johnny eat in 1 year. So that's where I want to be at. So I'm starting with a bag per day, and I want to end up with how many M&Ms does he eat in 1 year. So I need to cancel out one of these. I can choose bag or day. I'm going to choose bag. So if I want to cancel out bag, I know I need bag on the bottom. And this second sentence tells me that one bag contains 56 M&Ms. So now I've canceled out the word bag, and I have the word M&M on top, which is exactly what I wanted. So now I'm going to move on to cancel out the word day. If I have day on bottom, I know I need day on top. And if I want to get this to years, I know that there are 365 days in 1 year. So the word day has canceled, and I have the word year on bottom. So now I just multiply across the top. 1 times 56 times 365. And I get 20,440. 20,440, and this would be M&Ms. And on bottom, 1 times 1 times 1 would be 1, and that was year. So I would do that division, but since I'm dividing by 1, it doesn't make a difference, or doesn't change anything. So Johnny eats 20,440 M&Ms per year. All right, so that's just a conversion. We knew all the given units within the word problem, and we just had to figure out how to set those up in the dimensional analysis format. So leave number 16 for you to do. Now we're going to look at standard conversions in higher dimensions. So this one's a unique one, but it's still the same process. We just have to make sure that we're setting it up the same way. So here I want to convert 4 square feet to square inches. So when you see the word square, we need to make sure that we keep that. I'm just going to write it this way, 4 feet squared. And I want to put that over 1. And then I want to get rid of feet, all right, but feet has to be squared. If I'm going from feet to inches, I knew that there were 1 feet, or 1 foot is 12 inches, right? I knew that earlier, but here, feet can't cancel out feet squared completely, so I have to do something mathematically to this to get these to cancel out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to square this fraction, and if I do that, now I have 4 feet squared over 1, right, that was this one, times 12 squared is 144, and inches squared is just inches squared. On bottom, 1 squared is just 1, and then feet squared gives me feet squared. So now that I have these in the same format, feet squared can cancel with feet squared, and I just have 4 times 144. Go to your calculator. 4 times 144 gives you 576. 576, and that's inches squared. And on bottom, 1 times 1 is just 1. So I have 576 inches squared. So when you see the word square, sorry, that was supposed to be a highlighter. When you see the word square, right, if I'm starting with squares, I want to set it up where I have feet squared, but then I'm going to use this technique where I'm going to square that whole second fraction, or that converting unit. Let's look at number 19. Number 19, I have the word cubed. Sorry. All right, so I have 6 cubic yards. When you see the word cube, that means we're in 3 dimensions, right? 3 dimensions. And instead of squaring something was 2 dimensions. When we square something, we raise it to the second power. When we cube something, we're going to raise it to the third power. So once again, I start with 6 cubic yards. So I want to start with 6 yards cubed. I make that a fraction. I know to go from yards to feet, I have 1 yard is 3 feet. But right now, I have yards cubed up top and only have yards on bottom. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to cube this whole second fraction. That will give me, if I just rewrite it now, 6 yards cubed over 1. 1 cubed is just 1. And then on this one, 3 to the third power. And if you need to know how to do this in your calculator, I should explain this with the square. I just have 3 raised to the third. And that gives me 27. So 3 raised to the third, this part, 3 raised to the third gives me 27. Feet cubed is just going to be feet cubed. All over 1 to the third is still 1. And now it's going to be yards to the third is yards cubed. So now the words yards cubed would cancel. And I just have 6 times 27. I think that's going to give me 162 feet cubed all over 1, which just is 162. I'm going to do this in my calculator just to make sure. 6 times 27. Don't want to give you all a wrong answer. 162 feet cubed would be the answer there. All right, so the last one I'm going to do for this assignment is 21. So I start with 3 cubic yards. So I have 3 yards cubed over 1. That's going to be the setup. 3 cubic yards is 3 yards cubed over 1. And I want to go to, and I've messed this up, but I want to go to cubic centimeters. So I want to convert this to cubic centimeters. So I don't have a one-step go from yards to centimeters, but I know I want to get rid of yards. And what I do have is 1 yard is 3 foot, but I hadn't canceled yards until I cube it. All right, so once I cube it, then I would be able to cancel my yards and yards. So I hadn't cubed it yet. I hadn't done this mathematically because this one's multiple steps. So now I have feet, right? So I'm going to have feet cubed. So let me step in and actually do this. So when I have multiple steps, I may want to go ahead and distribute that cube. So if I'm going to cube this whole thing, let's go ahead and cube these. So 3 cubed, feet cubed, 1 cubed, yards cubed. So that would cancel out yards cubed. So what that's going to leave me with, 3 cubed is going to be 27. You can type this in your calculator. But that leaves me with feet cubed up top, and then 1 cubed is 1. So if you want to do this multiple steps, you can do it that way. All right, so now I have feet cubed up top, and I want to get rid of feet cubed, and I know that I have 1 foot is 12 inches, but I don't need to just get rid of feet. I need to get rid of feet cubed. So I'm going to cube everything. So it's going to be 12 cubed, inches cubed, 1 cubed, feet cubed. That would cancel out my feet cubed, but I have inches cubed, which I want to cancel out. So I'm going to multiply this by 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters, but that's still 1 inch. So I need to cube everything again. So I have 2.54 cubed, centimeters cubed, 1 cubed, inches cubed, and my inches that's canceled out. So this one got pretty complex pretty quick, but if I look at the top, I want to make sure I'm grabbing everything with their cubes, and you could have did this one step at a time, and that may be the easiest way to go about doing this one. But here I have 3 times 3 cubed times 12 cubed times 2.54 cubed. On bottom, luckily 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is just going to be 1, so I just need to type in the top part. So I have 3 times 3 to the third. I probably need to drop back down here with the calculator, so I press to the right to get back on the ground. 12 to the third. Drop back down, times, and I didn't put my times there, but it's fine, 2.54 to the third. All right, let's see if I can come back and insert. You'll probably want to make sure that you include your multiplication sign, but I think I could have bumped it up without any problem. Insert and multiplication sign. Perfect. All right, so I have 3 times 3 to the third times 12 to the third times 2.54 to the third, and I get this answer. So it would be 2,293,664.57 if I wrote it as a rounded decimal to 2 decimal places. So 2,293,000. Probably need to write this. 2,293,000. Going to be multiple steps here. 664.57. 664.57. And I feel like that should have been 654. Nope, 664. Perfect. So that would be my answer, and that is in centimeters cubed. Centimeters cubed, and we saw that because that was the only thing we didn't cancel.